All right, folks, so I have a little bit of an unorthodox video for you all tonight. Although, if you're a regular viewer, not sure that I have any actual regular viewers, but if I do, if you're there, you probably already noticed that. And I hope you don't mind, because there's a whole lot of more unorthodoxy to come. But so tonight, I was driving home from work, and I turned on the AM radio to 760. And I was listening to the Mark Levin show. And when I turned into the Mark Levin show, he had just begun an interview with ESPN's Stephen A. Smith. And I thought what they were talking about was really interesting. Very, very interesting. So I figured I'd share it with you all. The first little bit is cut off just because I couldn't get my phone out quick enough to start recording. But just know they're talking about the new LeBron James video that just came out with him making his latest well-thought-out political statement to a high production value with many camera angles. So if you hadn't looked at that, I would do so. I would pause the video now, go look up the video with LeBron James, the most recent one. About him talking about the athlete who got arrested in Russia for trying to sneak carts in the plane. So yeah, take a look at that before you proceed. Oh, and before I start the recording, it might seem like it's kind of an odd mashup, Stephen A. Smith and Mark Levin, almost like it was just a completely randomized matchup. But if you think about it, you're bringing together the guy who goes on ESPN and yells about sports with the guy who goes on AM radio and yells about politics and the liberals all day. So if anything, it's actually kind of a match made in heaven. And this is actually not the first time the two have interviewed each other. And I'm going to be linking two other interviews, which are actually the full-length interviews, in the description. So without further ado, let's hear it.
There were years ago when I was very, very critical of him, and as a result, he's been very reluctant to talk to me per se, but he's always a gentleman. He's always respectful. But do we sit down one-on-one and talk anymore? No, that's not the case.
How about Cantor Freeman? Do you know him?
Vaguely. I mean, I said hello and goodbye in passing. I cover his exploits on the basketball court, but I don't know him personally. However, I'm very familiar with his positions, and I'm very familiar with how adamant he has been against LeBron James.
But let me ask you this. LeBron James, he makes a statement the other day. They make it their own promo in which people like me took the position, wait a minute, what the hell are you saying? You know, it's one thing to have a difference of opinion. You don't want to come back to America. And he seems to have reversed course, or at least clarified what he meant, which was, I meant emotionally. Does that make sense to you?
Right. Not really. I've been on vacation, so that's why people haven't heard me commenting about it. I most assuredly would have talked about it the next day and would have, basically said that that was a foolhardy statement on his part. Now, I will tell you that LeBron James obviously is a phenomenal player and a phenomenal athlete and an incredible role model in a lot of different ways. But that doesn't mean we agree with everything that he says. And there have been occasions from time to time where he said stuff that was either ill-advised or flat out incorrect. And I think in the case of Brittney Griner, I don't know how you can deduce that. We're not talking politics here from the standpoint of Biden as opposed to Trump, Bush, Clinton, Obama, or anybody else. But if you're the president of the United States, I'm quite sure that there are an abundance of prisoners that you want to get out of jail who may have happened to have been imprisoned by Russia. Of course, we want Brittney Griner back home and safe, and a lot of people feel like the penalty against her is excessive. But to think for 1 second that the United States is not doing enough, I just think that that's a line that none of us as Americans should cross, because we don't understand the intricacies that go along with all of that, because we're just not in that stratosphere. And so for me personally, when I've spoken about the issue, Mark, and, everybody was, talking about let's get her home. I'm a strong advocate on behalf of that. I desperately want her back in the United States. But I've also reminded everybody, I've said, are we sure it's wise to be as outspoken as we've been, considering that we're talking about Vladimir Putin? And this notion, and I've said this as well, this notion that if it were LeBron James instead of Brittney Griner, that somehow LeBron James would have been home by now. I remind everybody again, We're talking about Vladimir Putin. You can't predict that with this guy. I mean, the world, this dude was telling everybody, I'm not doing anything, when everybody was warning the world that he's about to bomb, he's about to invade Ukraine. Mm-hmm. He did it anyway, and said that they provoked him and is lying to the public in Russia. I mean, you don't know what this guy is capable of. So, again, when we say stuff like that, unless that's our level of expertise, all we can do is follow the administration and the State Department and follow their lead, because that's where their expertise lies, not ours. And I think that LeBron James would have been wise to do the same. Even though he wasn't speaking about Russia, he was speaking about how Brittney Griner must be feeling. I just think that all of us need to be careful, because we don't know who might be listening, and we don't know how it may force or compel them to react. That's just my personal opinion about it.
Can you stay over the break?
Of course.
Because I want to ask you a bunch of other questions here. See that?
I'm here.
Levinites out there. I mean, that's very intriguing what you just said there, and I bet a lot of people didn't expect it. But I've come to learn that you think for yourself. When we come back, more Stephen A. Smith. I'll be right back. Stephen A., my question to you is this. The PGA and this LIV. People are taking sides on this. I felt like I kind of agree with Tiger Woods. What's your take on this?
I don't agree with him. I got a problem with him, and I got a problem with all of these folks associated with the PGA that are up in arms. And here's what my position is. Last time I checked, this is a capitalistic society. Think about what Phil Mickelson said originally, because I brought this up on First Take several weeks ago, and a lot of folks ignored the point that was being made. Phil Mickelson was talking about LIV Golf, the LIV Golf tournament, and why he wanted to participate in it, and talked about how it was going to bring attention to what the PGA has been doing to its golfers. So my point is, none of the golfers have answered that question. I said, I was on TV going off, what is he talking about? How are
they? What is he talking about?
He was talking about the treatment of the players, the funds that are available to them, their living expenses, all of the tournament, all of the revenue that they generate for the sport, and how they're compensated in an inequitable fashion throughout the years. And
what does that mean? Inequitable? Seriously, I'm not trying to be argumentative, but these guys live high off the hog.
Well, again, he was saying only a few of them. Like, I'm not a golf aficionado, Mark. So let me throw that out on Front Street. You got to get one of those guys on to talk about it. I'm saying, based off of what he said, I only ask a simple question. If I came to Mark Levin and I said, you know what, I play for the NBA. The NBA treats us like trash. We got these 10 players that are getting paid handsomely, but the other 440 are treated like garbage.
I know, but Stephen A., look at baseball. Yes. You got single A, double A, triple A. Those guys are barely getting by. Then you make it to the big leagues, and you're made. Okay. You know?
Hold on, wait a minute. But wait a minute. There are guys in Major League Baseball getting $400 million contracts. Yeah. And then there's another dude getting paid $5. So you see what I'm saying?
Or baby, $5 million.
No. But I'm being facetious. What I'm simply pointing to is, look into the discrepancy. This is America, okay? If you got the government doing business,
capitalism, not equality. Capitalism.
That's true. That's fair. You're right. I'm talking capitalism. If they're saying we want to do this because we're going to earn more money with these 8 tournaments than we'll do with the 48 tournaments of the PGA, I'm saying,
why wouldn't you? You're saying fair enough.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you?
All right. Let me ask you this. I've always wondered, what is your favorite sport? Do you have one?
Basketball and boxing, and then football.
What about UFC?
I love the UFC, but I love the UFC for a different reason. I'm a huge fan of Dana White. That's my guy. Yeah. I love Dana White. I thought that in 2021, he should have been named the Sportsman of the Year, because I think that he was more responsible than anyone in the world of sports for bringing us back to normalcy based off of what transpired during COVID. He refused to shut down. He refused to relent. He kept going and kept on his tournaments, and when it kept pushing and pushing and pushing, I think that Dana White is what boxing needs, because he makes sure we got the fights we want to see when we want to see them, as opposed to, these promoters that hide boxers and what have you, and prevent us from seeing the marquee fights we want to see when we want to see them. That's what I love about the UFC. Dana White. To me, he's that dude.
Explain to me, why am I hooked on the UFC? Because I can't do it? Because these guys are capable of doing things I would. What is it? I'm like stuck on it.
That's part of it. Part of it is the fact that that they mean business when they step into the octagon. It's not promoting, and then you get to go in there and run around the ring for 5 or 10 rounds. You got to fight. You can't get in the octagon for the UFC and run. It's figuratively speaking, it's kill or be killed. And you got to show up, and they usually deliver what was advertised. And that's a big reason. And plus, you get the fights you want to see when you want to see them. If two guys fought on tomorrow night's card, okay, there's a card tomorrow night, and they fought tomorrow night, and then the public was clamoring for two winners to go up against one another, Dana White will have that fight to you in 6 months.
Exactly.
In boxing, you'd wait 5 years. That's the difference.
Let me ask you a question. Another one.
Yeah.
You have a unique way, and I mean this with all my heart, of bridging races, bridging diversity. People are attracted to the way you speak, what you speak, how you do what you do. I can tell you, you're different in a good way.
Yeah. Thank you.
Can't you do something outside of, in addition to your sports, you should do something outside of sports? One of these nitwit, phony comedians, maybe you should be doing something like that.
Here's what I would tell you. I'm not at liberty to speak, but in a matter of the next 2 weeks or so, you can have me back on to talk about just that, because I can't say anything at this particular moment in time, but I absolutely will be doing more than just sports in the weeks to come.
And I can be a guest, right?
Yes, you can. Absolutely.
I'll scare off half your audience. What?
No, I mean, but see, that's the whole point, and that's what I'm about. It's like, wait a minute here. Listen, I'm a black man, and I'm a registered independent. I'm not a rhino. I'm not a Republican. I'm damn sure not a progressive. Make no mistake about that. But I believe from time to time, on a case-by-case basis, everybody has a point. And so for me, I don't get caught up in swinging one way or another. And I'm not devoid of principles or anything like that. I just think the prism of history tells us a lot more than stuff tells us in the immediacy of a moment. But for example, when you're a black dude, I am very sensitive to the fact that even though I am not one, that you have a lot of people who will look at black conservatives and you're ready to excoriate them and call them sellouts. I think you got people that look at conservatives and they automatically assume they're racist. I don't subscribe to that theory. I don't play that BS. That's nonsense to me. Let me hear what your issue is. Let me hear why you believe what you believe. And I will deduce whether I agree or disagree with you. But just because I might disagree with you, and I'm here to tell you, I disagree with the great Mark Levin at least 50% of the time. But guess what? It doesn't stop me from listening to your show, and it doesn't stop me from recognizing that you do a great job at what you do, and you make very, very, very valid points, which, by the way, I got a memoir coming out in January, and I mentioned that about you in my book.
Well, let me ask you a question. Are they going to let you come on my Sunday show when that book comes out?
Yes.
So you'll be able to come on my Fox show?
Yes.
All right, man. All right, you heard it here. I'd love to have you. All right,
absolutely, good. Not a problem. Done.
So when in 2 or 3 weeks you're coming back on, or when you can say it, right?
Yes, I will.
This will be fascinating.
The news will hit, and I assure you, you will want me back on, and you'll be one of the first people I talk to. I promise.
And I'm going to love it. All right, that's about it. I love sports, but I'm not smart enough to talk about it. I think you got to know your limitations. I
think, I personally speaking, I don't think anybody would question your intelligence. I think that everybody would question your interest because you're incredibly passionate about what you do. Therefore, the issues that you discuss are far, far, far more important than sports, and that's where your focus is preoccupied. That's what your focus is preoccupied on. There's absolutely nothing wrong, because at the end of the day, even though everything's a microcosm of society, we're talking about big money and all of this other stuff. Right. In the end, we're talking about games and the people who play them. You're talking about real life issues that affects every American citizen in this nation. That's far more important than sports. I know better than that.
All right, my man. Well, thanks for coming on, and hope you feel better soon.
I appreciate it, man. Take care. Have a great weekend.
You too. God bless. I love that guy. I do. He's just a great guy. The American public's getting pinched right now.